nasty, nasty, nasty work, Tiffany Hayes. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. You are pushing for physical harm and violence on Caitlin Clark because she busted your you-know-what in a basketball game that you was doing a lot of trash talking into. This is nasty work.
There is a clear legal and institutional line between competitive hostility within basketball and behavior that extends beyond the court into areas that professional leagues, legal teams, and corporate partners treat with far greater seriousness. On-court actions such as physical play, trash talk, and the mental aspects of competition are already covered by league rules, officiating standards, and collective bargaining agreements. These are expected parts of the game and are regulated within an established disciplinary framework. However, when a verified professional athlete with a large public platform engages with or amplifies content that involves explicit references to off-court physical harm directed at an identifiable person, it shifts into a separate category of concern. That kind of conduct triggers different legal, organizational, and corporate responsibilities. The situation involving the Indiana Fever has already raised ongoing questions about accountability within the team's coaching and management structure over recent weeks. Now, attention has shifted toward a different individual, a different platform, and potentially different consequences, while still requiring the same level of careful, evidence-based analysis. In this context, the focus is on a documented review of the Tiffany Hayes social media situation, what was observed, what it may imply from an institutional standpoint, and how the WNBA's response reflects its broader disciplinary consistency. The intent is not to repeat or amplify threatening content beyond what is necessary for factual understanding, but to examine the professional implications of a public figure's engagement in a digital space and the responsibilities that may follow for the league and related organizations, including the Golden State Valkyries and the WNBA Players Association. This also raises a broader question of consistency, especially in light of recent disciplinary action within the same week for other forms of public criticism. Comparing these responses is important in understanding how the league prioritizes and enforces its standards across different situations.
I cannot believe Tiffany Hayes went on social media and did this. So there was people in the social media world, and there's weirdos out there, okay, that Caitlin Clark's had a stalker already. So these things are to be taken serious, regardless if you want to or not. We watched someone get arrested for stalking this woman, okay?
The on-court context comes before the off-court discussion and is important for understanding what followed. During the Indiana Fever's 90-82 win over the Golden State Valkyries, Tiffany Hayes was involved in a documented on-court exchange with Caitlin Clark that included close defensive pressure and direct physical presence aimed at disrupting Clark's rhythm. In response, Clark hit a 33-foot shot well beyond the standard three-point line and followed it with verbal interaction directed at Hayes. This type of sequence is typical of high-intensity competitive moments and becomes part of the official game record and highlight material. After this exchange, Hayes' on-court performance declined over the remainder of the game. Her shooting efficiency dropped, and the Valkyries ultimately lost by 8 points. These are recorded statistical facts reflected in the box score, not subjective interpretation. The focus then shifts to the subsequent social media activity, which is where the broader institutional discussion begins.
Of that. And then another person said, listen, I got some cousins. We don't need to speak about that. We'll ride at dawn upon request. Just let me know. So this person is saying, I got some cousins that'll do physical harm and commit to violence on Caitlin Clark that has nothing to do with on the court. You're talking about harming someone violently off the floor in their regular day-to-day lives. This is nasty, regardless if this person is serious or not. As a professional, you should not be entertaining this. You should not be laughing and kikiing and ha-haing and pushing for this, Tiffany Hayes. This is nasty work. Tiffany Hayes puts "that's real" with the crying face. It's not funny that you are.
In the hours after the game, Hayes was seen interacting with content in her social media mentions that reference the phrase "crash out," a slang term often used to describe losing emotional control in a competitive or heated context related to basketball. Her engagement with these posts was later documented and shared publicly. The more significant element in the situation involved a separate user message that, by available accounts, suggested off-court physical harm toward Clark outside of any basketball context. The message clearly extended beyond competitive discussion and into references to harm away from the game environment, directed at a specific individual. Hayes' response to that particular message was documented as a brief reply characterizing it as real, accompanied by an emoji interpreted as expressing amusement.
It's Tiffany Hayes. This is nasty work. Tiffany Hayes puts "that's real" with the crying face. It's not funny that you are pushing for this. The WNBA needs to come out and suspend her ass right away. Okay, a fine isn't enough. She needs to be fined and suspended immediately. There's no way she should.
A careful institutional reading of this specific interaction requires precision. In the documented, publicly visible record, Hayes is described as having responded positively to content that referenced off-court harm toward a named individual. The key issue raised in this analysis is not basketball-related conduct, but the nature of the social media engagement itself. From this perspective, the argument being made is that her response did not include reporting the content, distancing herself from it, or explicitly rejecting its appropriateness. Instead, it is characterized as a reply that could be interpreted as approval or amusement. The significance of this, in the framework being outlined, is that it shifts the discussion from sport to broader organizational concerns, specifically reputational risk, legal exposure, and duty of care considerations tied to public-facing conduct by professional athletes. Within this framing, Caitlin Clark is described not as a generic public figure, but as someone who has previously been associated with documented security-related concerns, which is used to argue that any apparent endorsement of harmful messaging carries greater contextual weight than it would in an ordinary online exchange between athletes. The analysis further suggests that responses of this kind do not occur in isolation, but in a broader digital environment where content can be amplified and misinterpreted by different audiences, including individuals with malicious intent. Finally, the subsequent action of blocking accounts that were commenting on or criticizing the interaction is framed here as a form of avoidance rather than accountability, with the argument being that it addresses the visibility of criticism rather than the underlying issue being raised.
Is ridiculous, okay? And now what do you have? Tiffany Hayes can't handle it. And what is Tiffany Hayes doing? Tiffany Hayes is now blocking people on social media because they are calling her out for her immaturity and her lack of professionalism and the stupidity. It's stupid.
The situation involving Tiffany Hayes' social media activity has raised questions about player conduct, league discipline, and institutional consistency within the WNBA. After an on-court game between the Indiana Fever and Golden State Valkyries, attention shifted to Hayes' online engagement with content that critics say referenced off-court harm toward a named player. This has led to debate over whether such behavior requires formal league action, especially given existing player safety concerns and the public nature of the interaction. The WNBA and the Valkyries are now under scrutiny regarding how they respond compared to other recent disciplinary actions, with broader questions about consistency, accountability, and the league's growing professional and commercial responsibilities.